I just want to let Glint know that Thon is valid, that verb pronouns are valid, and that Sarah identity is valid.
Is it though? It's time for everybody's favorite part of the podcast, where I subject myself to torture and react to TikToks from the LGBT community. Buckle up and get ready to lose some brain cells with me, because we got some doozies on deck for today.
I don't have a problem with LGBTQ+, but I don't think kids at that age should be knowing or celebrating that yet, honestly, but still, no problem with LGBTQ+. Hello, apostrophes, fairy gay father here with a simple question. Why not? Let me get this gay. Somebody answer this. What is the fear? Because no one in the legitimate qua premium is pushing for adult content. Kids learning we exist does two things. Kids that are rainbow sprinkles have a better chance at acceptance, and kids that are not will have a better chance at being accepting. Why is it okay for kids to only learn about heterosexuality? It's not, so follow for more gayness.
I'm going to try to separate the message of this video from the unusual presentation and focus more on the message. So for me, it does depend how young the kids we're talking about are. Are we talking about, 8th graders who will have romantic relationships going on and some of them might be gay or starting to figure out that they might be gay? Or are we talking about 5-year-olds or 3-year-olds in preschool? And yes, I'm not making that up. Some woke people really are teaching pronouns to preschoolers. Assuming we're talking about the latter scenario, I think it's perfectly reasonable, even for people who are perfectly fine with LGBT people, to not want kids talked to about sexual orientation or gender identity or very confusing and complex topics that involve adult stuff that they can't understand at that young age. I do think we have to separate gender and sexual orientation a little bit here. Because personally, I see nothing wrong with even very young kids understanding and being allowed to know or told or observe that some people have 2 moms, some people have 2 dads, and that that's a thing that exists. And I agree that that's not going to turn any kids gay or anything like that. There's nothing to worry about that. They either will be or they won't. And whether they're told about it when they're 4 or 5 or kept in the dark isn't going to change that. Trust me, that's not how that works. With the gender identity and the pronoun stuff, I worry more about exposing really young, impressionable kids to it at all because frankly, a lot of it, like the non-binary stuff, is incoherent and confusing even to us adults. And kids that age are so impressionable, and with something that really is just kind of vague and hard to pin down, it's just a sense of feeling, you could confuse them into thinking that they are non-binary or that they're not a girl because they don't like dolls or whatever. And I think that is something that should be avoided, and there is some harm there. I also have to push back on this guy's point that no one is pushing adult content, by which he means sexually explicit content on kids. I agree that most normal LGBT people aren't doing that, and I'm sure you're not doing that. You seem like nice, I guess. But I will say some people are. Some of the books that they're defending having in middle schools, for example, have openly sexually explicit demonstrations or depictions and depict sex acts, discuss kinks and fetishes, and go into great detail about using hookup apps and all of this stuff. That is in some of the LGBT books that are being defended and pushed in schools by the LGBT activist community. So you can't just deny that that's happening entirely because, I'm sorry, it is. Although I will agree it's not representative of most LGBT people or something that your average everyday gay person or even trans person is actively concerned about or trying to do. Up next, we've got another update from the Neopronoun people.
So this is a video for Neopronoun users to duet. Or, if you're considering neopronouns for yourself, maybe even try a blind react. However, safety first, before you do either of those things, make sure you're in a mental state where if you do get misgendered, you will be okay. Alright, are you ready? Let's get started. Do you see this person next to me? E is my friend. C has had to put up with a lot to get to where Per is today. I just want to let Glint know that Thon is valid, that verb pronouns are valid, and that Sarah identity is valid.
Is it though?
I wish Void all the best, and look forward to maybe even seeing some of their lovely content someday. Please, treat them with respect, and I'm sure A will respect you too. So how did that feel? Are there any neopronouns that stuck out to you that you might want to use for yourself?
No.
Good luck on your pronoun journey.
So the reason I wanted to include this one is because it was on Instagram Reels, and on Instagram, baby girl, the comments section is not nearly as woke as on TikTok, so they were not having it. One person said, "As a gay man, I speak for true gay and lesbian people. Remove us from your liberal alphabet soup. We work too hard to get mixed up in your melted crayon soup." Another person said, "I don't like how gays are getting grouped into this. Gays try to show you how we are like everyone else and deserve to be treated the same because we love the same gender. Please reference all gay movement ever. This neopronoun confusion is trying to show how these people are different and they demand respect for it, which nobody can really get behind because it isn't inclusive. It's actually causing exclusion since the possibilities for additional pronouns seem endless and nobody can keep up with this." Finally, this guy commented, "How do you delete someone else's post?" Yeah, look, I agree with the general thrust of these comments. The neopronoun thing is incoherent. Those words aren't even pronouns. They're not even words. You're trying to destroy our language and play a weird game of mental and linguistic make-believe that nobody's playing, babe. We're not playing this game. And you need to stop tying it to gays and lesbians because you're dragging us down. You are the hole in the bottom of the Titanic, and the ship is sinking. Up next, I actually, at least in part, agree with this trans TikTok.
Males need to be banned from girls' bathrooms, and I don't care what anybody says.
Genuine question. If I walked into a woman's bathroom, how do you think the woman would respond? Do you think they would be scared? Do you think they would be uncomfortable? Do you think they might call someone, a police officer, a security guard, anything like that? Probably they would be, and that would be awful, and I would never want women to feel that way, which is why, as a transgender man, I use the men's restroom. What a lot of transphobic people fail to consider when they're talking about trans people in bathrooms is that it's so much more than just the biology, it's the social aspect of it. It's the way that you are perceived. Because regardless of whether you actually think I'm a man or not, maybe you just think I'm a woman, I am perceived as a man. Whether you like it or not, I am perceived at large as a man if someone doesn't know that I'm trans. That's the first thing they're gonna think. So if you actually care about things like women feeling safe, women feeling comfortable, why would you want me in the women's restroom? Probably because you actually don't care and you're just a transphobe trying to hide your prejudice under protecting women. What else is new?
So I actually agreed with a lot of the things he was saying in this TikTok until the end. I don't think people who have concerns about males or people who still appear as men going into women's bathrooms, I don't think they're all bigots or hateful. I think some of them have legitimate concerns in good faith. That said, I do agree that it makes no sense to simply force everyone to use the bathroom aligned with their birth sex because people like this exist. Trans men who pass and trans women who pass, and you're actually creating a whole nother uncomfortable can of worms for everybody involved if you force them into the opposite gender bathroom. It would make women uncomfortable to see this trans guy who passes as a dude in their bathroom, the same way it would if they saw Buck Angel there or something like that. Now, I do agree that it's a problem if trans people who don't at all pass or aren't even making any effort to pass just start going into the opposite bathroom. I'm not exactly sure how we square this circle, but a one-size-fits-all rule that doesn't leave space and grace for genuine trans people who pass or at least very much try to doesn't work either. In fact, you then end up with people who maybe are a female but just look masculine getting harassed and the cops called on them because there's a man in the women's room. It opens up all these cans of worms. So I do think we need to approach this issue with nuance and not just fall into black and white thinking on either extreme. Up next, this trans TikToker actually seems kind of based.
Tells you that they're transgender, believe them. A lot of people will say that it's impossible for a 4-year-old.
Why is it always people that don't have kids that are speaking for children? I'm trans and I've been a stepmother for the last 2 years. He's 5 now and has no idea that I'm transgender. He's not ready for that conversation and we don't plan to tell him for a very long time until he's old enough to understand. 5-year-olds believe Santa Claus exists. And the fact you can sit there and tell me a 3, 4, 5-year-old is mentally competent enough to transition is insane and borderline predatory. I'm thankful I waited until I was an adult because as a child, I would not have been mentally ready for how serious a transition is. What baffles me is that these radicals think that transitions are so normal and not a big deal. My stepson, for example, loves pink and loves Barbies. And trust me, I'm all for breaking gender norms, but none of that means that he's trans. These people think children must medically transition to be validated, but they want grown men to be validated even without a transition whatsoever. Wild. It's not safe or morally ethical to allow children to transition. Let kids be kids.
Apparently this person, whose name is Eden the Doll, is a big trans personality. I wasn't really familiar with her, but I appreciate her speaking out. I also find the idea that we should just believe whatever a 5-year-old tells us about their identity, frankly, laughable. As anybody who works with kids knows, they'll tell you that they are a fairy or a firefighter or whatever. Like, they have all sorts of fanciful notions, and they can't actually comprehend complicated adult subjects like sex and gender. And I wanted to include this video to remind you guys that a lot of trans people are perfectly normal and are not out to get kids or are predatory in any kind of way, and that when we see these extreme types online engaging in this kind of behavior, we should never hold it against an entire category of people. But what do you think? Which of these TikToks did you enjoy? Did you enjoy watching me lose brain cells, at least from some of them? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to hit that like button and maybe even consider subscribing and sticking around. And with that, I'll see you all next week.